In this video, I will show you how to create a weather application using React.js and Bootstrap. So here we can provide the city name and we obtain the weather details of this city. So here we obtain the weather details of this city. We have the temperature, we have the humidity and the wind speed. So let's provide another city. Then search. So now we have the weather details of this new city. Let's provide another city name. Then search. And here we have the weather details of this city. But if we provide a wrong city name, then search, this time we have this alert, enable to fetch the weather forecast. So here I have a new React application, and to run it we have to go to terminal, then new terminal, and here we have to type npm start. And we obtain this initial application. So now let's delete useless files of the source folder. So we can delete all the files except index.js. Then let's update index.js. Let's delete these statements. And let's delete this code. Then let's create the app component. We can create it here. And let's return a JSX element. So let's return a fragment. And let's add an h1 element. Let's save the file. And we obtain this application. Now let's add Bootstrap to this application. Let's go to the first link, then docs, and let's add Bootstrap CSS and JavaScript. So let's copy the link element, we have to add it in the index.html file, and let's add it after the title. Then let's add Bootstrap JavaScript. So let's copy this element. And let's add it here. Then we need Bootstrap icons. So let's click on icons. And let's copy this element. Let's paste it here. Then let's save the file. So now we can close this file. Now let's create a new component that allows us to display the weather forecast. We can create it in the source folder. So let's call this file weatherforecast.js. Then let's create and export a new component. Let's return a JSX element. We can return a div. So this div will be a Bootstrap container. So just here let's add a class name. It is called container. Also let's add some top and bottom margin. Then inside this div let's create a new div that will be displayed in the center of the page. So to display it in the center of the page, we have to use the class mxauto. Then let's add additional Bootstrap classes. So we can create a rounded border, we can display the text in the center, and we can display the text using the white color. Also we have some paddings. Now let's add the style attribute. So here we need to define the background color and the width of this div. Let's format this a little bit. So here we will use this background color and we will create a div with this width 400 pixels. Then let's display the title of this page so we can create an h2 element. So here we can write weather forecast, and also we can add some Bootstrap classes. So we can display this text in bold, and we can add a bottom margin. Now let's add a form that allows the user to provide the city name and the submit button. So to find the source code, we can go to the documentation website of Bootstrap. Then we can click on navbar. Then let's copy the source code of this input field and this submit button. So we can copy the source code of this form. Let's paste it here. Let's replace class with class name. So let's select class equal, then Ctrl-Shift-L, then class name equal. Then let's close the input element. We can close it just here. So here we don't need the role attribute. Let's delete it. Let's delete the type attribute as well. In the placeholder we can write city. We don't need the area label, so let's delete it. And we need to provide this input field with a name. So let's call it city. Then let's change the color of this button. So let's delete success and let's replace it with light. Then let's add a bottom margin to this form. Then after this form, let's add an image. Let's add the source attribute. So for the moment, let's display a static image. So I will use an image from the URL openweathermap.org/weather-conditions. And I will copy this URL. Let's paste it here. Then let's add the alt attribute. Then after the image, let's display the temperature. So let's add an h1 element. And let's provide a static temperature for the moment. Then let's add some Bootstrap classes. So we can use these two classes to increase the size and the font weight of this text. Then let's display the city name. So let's create another h1 element. Then after the city name, we can add a bottom margin. Then after the city name, we can create a row with two columns. So in the first column, we want to display the humidity, and in the second column, we want to display the wind speed. So we need to add two icons. So let's go to Bootstrap Icons. So here let's write water. Then let's copy the source code of this icon. So let's copy this code. And let's paste it in the first column. Let's replace class with class name. And just after this icon, we can write the text humidity. And in the second line, we can display the value of the humidity. So for the moment, let's display a static value. In the second column, we want to display the wind speed. So here let's write wind. And let's copy the source code of this icon. Let's paste it here. And let's replace class with class name. So after the icon, we can write wind speed. Then let's provide a static value for the moment. Now let's save the file and let's render this component in the index file. So we can delete the h1 element and let's replace it with weather forecast. Let's press enter to import the component. Then let's save the file. And we obtain this result. So here we have the title of the page. We have this input field and this submit button. We have this image from the OpenWeather map. Then we have the temperature, the city, the humidity, and the wind speed. So instead of displaying the different values statically, let's display them from a state. So just here, let's create a new variable of type state. So let's create a variable called weather, and the function that allows us to update the weather, we can call it setWeather. Of course, we have to call useState. Then let's provide an initial value to this variable. So we can create a variable of type object. So here we can provide an object. Then let's define the object properties that we will render in the component. So here we have the icon, the temperature, the city, the humidity, and the speed. Now let's render these properties in the user interface. So first, let's display the image. We can delete this. Let's add brackets. Then to display the image, we have to provide first the name of the variable, which is weather. Dot icon. Then let's display the temperature. So let's delete this. Let's add brackets. Then weather.temp. Then let's display the city. So here we have to write weather.city. Then we need to display the humidity and the speed. Let's save the file, and we obtain the same result. Now when we click on this submit button, we need to read the city name. So here in the form element, let's add on submit, and let's execute a function that we can call handle submit. Then let's implement this function. So we can implement it here. It requires a parameter, we can call it event. Then first we need to prevent the browser from submitting any data to the server. So we have to call event.preventDefault. Then let's read the content of this input field. So let's create a variable, let's call it city, and it is equal to event.target. So target here is this form, and we need to read the data of this input field. So this input field is called city. So here we have to add .city. .value that allows us to read the content of this input field. Then let's check if we have a valid city name or not. So let's add an if condition. So if not city, this means that we don't have a valid name. So in this case, we can display an alert. So we can display please provide the city name, and of course we need to exit this method. So just after, let's write return. Otherwise, if we have a valid city name, then we can display another alert with the city name. So just here, let's add another alert. So we will display another alert that contains city and the name of the city. Let's save the file. Let's click on search. So we have this alert, please provide the city name. Now let's provide the city name, then search. So this time we have city is equal to New York. So in order to display the weather of the selected city, we need to send a request to an API called OpenWeather Map. So here let's write OpenWeather Map. Then let's go to this first link. Then we need to create an account. So we can click on sign in. So if you don't have an account, you need to create a new account. In my case, I have an account, so I will just log in. Then let's go to API keys. So this is my API key, and when you create a new account, you have to wait a few minutes to be able to use your API key. So let's copy this API key. Then here let's create a new variable. We can create it just here. And let's call it API key. Then let's paste the API key. Let's save the file. Then let's go to API. Then let's select current weather data, then API doc. Then we have these examples. So we can copy this example. Let's paste it here. Then let's replace the API key by the value of my API key. So here we can click on API key. Let's copy this API key. And let's use it here. Let's press enter. And we obtain this data. But here the temperature is expressed in Kelvin. And I want to express it in Celsius. So just here in the URL, let's add units. And it is equal to metric. Let's press enter. So this time the temperature is expressed in Celsius. Now let's copy this URL. Then let's update handle submit. So we can delete this. And to send a request to the OpenWeather API, we will use the fetch API. So let's call the fetch method. And let's provide it with the URL. Then we will replace the city name by this variable. So let's delete the city name. Let's add double quotes, then plus. Then let's add the city. Then let's replace the app ID with our API key. So let's delete the API key from here. Let's add plus. Then this API key. So after sending the request, we need to read the result. So just here let's add .then. Let's provide it with an arrow function. So it requires a parameter, which is the response. Let's call it response. So when we receive the response, let's check if we have a success response or not. So if not response.ok, this means that we have an error. In this case, we can throw an exception. Otherwise, we have a success response. In this case, we can convert this response into a JSON object. So here let's add return response.json. Then when we have the JSON data, we can read it. So just here let's add .then. Let's provide an arrow function that requires a parameter that will be our data. Let's call it data. Then we will use this data to fill the weather state. So here let's call setWeather. And of course we have to provide this method with an object. Let's copy these properties. And let's paste them here. So first let's set the icon. So we can set the icon from this data. So in this data we have weather, which is an array, and in the first element of this array we have icon, which is the name of the image. So here we have only the name of the image. And if we take a look on the format of the image name, we can see that it should have this format. So we only received this value that we can use to obtain the URL of the image. So this is the name of the icon, and to read it we have to call data.weather of 0.icon. So just here let's delete this part. Let's add double quotes, then plus, then data.weather of 0.icon. Then let's read the temperature. So the temperature is available under main. Let's delete this. Let's add data.main.temp. Now we need to read the city. So the city is just available under name. So let's write data.name. Then we need the humidity and the speed. So humidity is available under main and speed is available under wind. Then after this, let's catch any exception. So just here let's add .catch. Let's provide it with an arrow function that accepts a parameter. Let's call it error. And what we will do in this case is we will display an alert to the user. So we can show the message enable to fetch the weather forecast. Let's save the file. Let's go to the browser. Then let's click on search. So now we have the weather of this new city. So this is the temperature, the humidity, and the wind speed. Also, we have this icon. Let's provide another city. Then search. And we have the city weather. Now let's provide a bed city name. So now we have this alert enabled to fetch the weather forecast. Let's provide another city name. Then search.